So I figured I've been talking about the whole beef bone broth for a bit and the homemade stuff, so I figured I'd actually do it on video. So what we have here, we have a pot. We're bringing it up to boil, kind of a rolling boil. Put about 3.5 liters, which is just over 3.5 quarts of water. You're going to want to, salt to your preference. You're going to want a lot of salt, right? So I'm putting at least, I'll probably put like 3. All right, so that's a lot of salt, right? So I put 3 tablespoons in of pink salt, pink Himalayan salt. And what we're doing now, we just have to wait for it to start boiling, start doing the rolling boil. And then, as you can see, we got some beef bone for the marrow. I'll probably end up only using one of these, which is about 1.5 pounds. And so 1.5 pounds of that mixed in with that amount of water, that's salt. And then we'll talk about it as it starts to roll and boil, what to do from there. So as of right now, I just have everything on high, just trying to get it going, but I have to monitor it because if it starts boiling too much, it'll definitely spill over, and we don't want that. That's a big mess. So just hang on for a bit, and we'll come back once it starts doing that rolling type of boil in the pot. All right, we're starting to see a pretty good boil here. I am still on high, but you're starting to see it start to roll a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to back it off to about halfway. And now I'm going to start putting in the bits. Cow bone. Got some little meat on that too. That'll be tasty later. So we're going to start plopping that in. Bear with me, I'm doing left-handed here. Sorry. Oops. You know what? Hands on that one. All right. So we need to watch this water for a bit. And as it starts to boil again, reboil with the bones in there, let the marrow come out. And really when you're looking at bone marrow, what are the benefits? Well, you're going to get calories, you're going to get fat, proteins out of that. Collagen, good for the skin. Glycosamine, good for the joints. Vitamin B12, some other vitamins and minerals in there. So it's just a real positive source for your body for some of these minerals and vitamins you might be deficient in doing this carnivore diet. Either way, it's very good for you. Now you have to constantly be careful and cognizant of the fact that it's going to be a higher fat content and things along those lines, so you can't make it your whole diet, but you're going to get some good stuff out of that marrow within the bones. So we're going to continue to let this be on medium. I'm going to monitor it a bit, and once I kind of eyeball it appropriately, we start to get a decent bubble on, we'll end up lowering it, probably midway, and just let it simmer. And it's going to be like a 4 to 6 hour process. It really depends. It's really to your own taste and preference. And then I'll probably add a bit more pink salt in there as well as I see fit. So overall, this is going to be a pretty good pot, and we're going to keep monitoring it. I'll keep adding some video content to this. But there you go. About 1.5 pounds of beef bone broth, or of beef bone with marrow in this pot, which I filled with 3.5 liters of water. And that'll boil down, obviously, as it continues to evaporate off the water. Put about 3 teaspoons of salt in there as well. And we're going to let this be uncovered for a bit and let it do its thing. It's on midway point. And then in a bit, we'll lower it all the way to really a simmer. You want it to simmer for about 4 to 6 hours. All right, we'll be back. Okay, so it's been about, call it 8 or 9 minutes, close to 8 minutes, where it's been boiling on this medium heat. A few moments ago, I mentioned how much salt I put in. I misspoke. 3 tablespoons, not 3 teaspoons. 3 teaspoons wouldn't be enough. So as of right now, there's 3 tablespoons. I actually did a little salt bay of a little more salt on top. We need salt. We need that sodium while we're doing this thing. So it's been about 9 minutes now on this medium heat, and we're getting a decent bubble back on. So that's where I'm gonna lower this down. So on ours, that's pretty low. And so it'll be right here, uncovered, and we're gonna go for, like I said, could be 4 to 6 hours. Right now it is 11:22, so we're coming back at I'll be checking on it throughout the process, obviously. But what, 4 hours? That's 322. So we'll take a look at 322 and the color and consistency, and we might just keep on going. So this isn't one of these set it and leave the house sort of deals. You do need to have it monitored, because I'm keeping it open. I want the water to evaporate off and get this concentrated down to a nice consistency on this bone broth. So once again, it was 1.5 pounds of beef bone, 3.5 liters of water. I put 3 tablespoons of pink salt, and then I garnished after I put the bones, and I put a handful of sprinkling. So that was probably closer to 4 tablespoons. So it's really up to your palate, what your taste is. The prior batch that we made here, or actually that my wife made, was about 2 tablespoons, I believe, and I needed a little more salty taste to it. But overall, we are in the process, and we got about 4, maybe 6 hours to go. But it's going to be simmering here, and it's going to start smelling pretty nice, and it's already starting to look good. That is the beef bone broth. When we start to get to the backside of this process, we'll attach another video to this whole thing, and we'll see how it's looking. Alright, it's been a little over 4 hours, getting close to 5 hours that this thing has been simmering. As you can see, we started at about 3.5 liters of water. This is reduced down to about 2 liters, and that's including the bones and the marrow inside. It's going to simmer a little bit longer, but I just gave it a taste. It tastes nearly ready. We've had to adjust it, back and forth. You got to monitor this a bit, so you always want there to be just a little bit of a simmer boil going, a little bubbling. For us on our stovetop, going all the way to low was too low, and so we've just been kind of wiggling it, going back and forth a little bit, just so that there would be a reasonable simmering boil. But overall, it tastes very good, very good. So I think I'm going to give this about 20 more minutes, and then at that point, remove the bones and strain this thing, and then I will have bone broth. All right, so there you go. Just strained it into this other pot, and then I'll use this funnel to go ahead and get into this mason jar. But there you go. There's all the bones that we have been reducing down, all the little mushy bits and whatnot. So this is the broth. It's a nice texture, tastes very good, not too salty, but has a lot of flavor. So next step for me is to go ahead and funnel it and put it in this big mason jar. All right, so there you have it. That is the homemade bone broth from beef bones. Gave about 5-6 cups, which is 1.5 liters, maybe liter and a half. And you can already see the fat starting to rise up. It'll thicken up at the top. And then depending on the coloring, so if you want a darker a darker cow bone broth, then obviously use more marrow, more bones. But I like my consistency like this, because then it'll thicken up a bit in the fridge, and so it'll just have a nice consistency after it's chilled. And so what I do then is that, over the course of the next handful of days, as I drink this, I'll just pull it out of the fridge, make sure that I can get through the fat layer, and just put some in a coffee cup, heat it up, and just drink it like a warm cup of soup or something along those lines. But it's tough on the camera. It's definitely darker in person than it's showing up on the screen. But it's very tasty. I put enough salt in there, so it has a nice salty taste to it as well. But overall, you're going to get a lot of nutrients and minerals from that marrow. The B12s, like I mentioned, the collagen, definitely some proteins, fats, and all sorts of stuff. Look it up. I mean, there's plenty of benefits from it. Sorry, I got a mess around here, so I got to clean all this stuff up. But overall, good experience making that at home. But then also, we have some stuff to mess with here on the bones and the little tasty parts. So we shall see what we do with that. But that is what we did with the bone broth. We used 1.5 pounds of beef bone, about 3.5 liters of water, a bunch of salt, depending on your taste. So I used 3 tablespoons, and then put a bunch on top, so it was probably close to 4, and then just let it simmer. Brought the water to boil, let it put the bones in, let it simmer then for almost 5 hours, and then this is the right consistency for me. It tastes very good. Anyways, hope you enjoyed that. If you have any feedback or questions about what I did, just feel free to comment below and also give us a little shout out or subscribe. Appreciate it. Have a good one.